Hello. Hi, Veruschka. How are you doing?
Hi, Carly. Good.
Awesome. Right. It's really lovely to have you on my show. And I would like to start off with you just giving the viewers a little information about who you are and what attracted you to this unmasked idea.
Well, I am a healing arts coach. I think that's the best way, the umbrella to share that I'm a certified EFT practitioner, emotional freedom technique. I've been practicing for 15 years with group work. I'm a certified life coach, calling it mindset management transformational coach. So basically, at the root of it, I'm all about clearing and resolving trauma, fear, all those energy signatures, and love working with groups of women. Done a lot of clearing on, first and second chakras, things where women really actually have results in their health issues and moving forward and their empowerment by really addressing the power of clearing the emotional signatures that hold things in the body. So it's a very much an embodied process, not just, mental work.
Yeah.
And, we did meet through human design a little bit. So I'm a mental projector, which means, for someone like me that's been on a spiritual path since I was 17, to find out like all of my energy is in the mind. It's kind of like the contrast of like, you're trying to fight the mind and the mind and the ego, but I'm all about spirit and blah, blah, blah. So a lot of my work is really soul-based, but it's really also, really honoring and respecting who we are, the complex mess that we are of our conditioning and the product of how we were raised. And so I do call my work psycho-spiritual work because we're dealing with the psychology, but also bringing in more spirit to really lean more into our true essence. So that's, my passion work in this life, my purpose work. And on the side, I'm really passionate about alchemical photography, which I work with a person to really like express themselves and take them into nature. And I make vibrational flower essence formulas. And that's just like another vehicle for the people that don't want to do the personal work, that don't want, they might have a counselor, but they don't want to do like the real transformational work. And so for me, the flowers are a sneaky way to help people's etheric body, so yeah, that's about
amazing
the work that I do in a nutshell.
That sounds amazing. It's kind of on par really with what I do. Yours is kind of more detailed and dimensional than what I do, but it's the same thing, the idea of like the psycho stuff and the embodiment and that kind of thing. It's like we're all helping each other out with this trauma. I actually had a stint with some flower essences recently. I bought some, and I found that they actually did something. They gave me some kind of confidence or something or grounding or whatever it was that made me take action. I'm saying it is that anyway, where I kind of wouldn't normally have had the guts to keep following through, but I felt like this one was for like my masculine energy, and it felt like it really gave me a container to support myself. Like it did what it said on the bottle. And I was a bit dubious at first, I have to be honest. I was skeptical, but it definitely, I felt like it did something. So yeah, amazing. Do you make them?
Those sneaky flowers? I do actually. And it was really totally spirit led. A friend of mine, actually just a Facebook friend, she had sent some out, and I've been using Bach flower remedies for since the late 80s. So Bach flower is, rescue remedy is something that you can find at the checkout at Whole Foods, a chain in America, where it's like, oh, this emotional support, and they have it in cream form and dropper form. So I leaned on that heavily for 20 something years, like I need a little rescue remedy, because it's just like you felt this like instant relief, you know? And so anyway, in 2015, this friend just shared with me how to make the flower essences, which you can Google and it's super easy. But the flower, I was living on the big island of Hawaii for 10 years. And so the flowers they just start speaking to you. So it was this own organic, timely evolution that happened for me. And it was this call and response that I would listen like, oh, why are these hibiscus flowers like popping in my eyeballs right now, even though there's amazing flowers everywhere. And so then I was guided to make flower essences under the high noon sun, and you just place them in fresh water for a few hours, and then you preserve them in a little bit of brandy and additional spring water. But every time I would have like the calling from the flower, it would turn out that that day would happen to be a special astrological alignment, you know, like a new moon or a full moon, or this one time it was the first time we had the same stars in the sky as during the Star of Bethlehem, you know, like that hadn't happened in 2000 years. And it's like, why on that day did this flower, you know, call me out? And I listened, and it's just being what I call available to the magic and being curious about it. And so I have been making them in Hawaii. I made them on the East Coast. I've been making them in California. And it's not like, oh, I want to do the rose, you know, because my business is called Rose Yoga. I wasn't allowed to do the rose for like 4 years, you know, until on the East Coast, this pink rose spoke to me, and then I did it. And then it turned out the type was a mutability rose, you know, and it's like, wow, it's so for these times where we are mutating, you know, and having to kind of stay organic at a time where AI is kind of our competition in our ways of survival and connecting, you know. So I love that flower essences are really potent in this time of just supporting our organic nature, you know? So I call them my flower essence army. I've got about 60 plus that I have, like little ones, and then the big bottles in storage, and they are preserved for a long time. And then I just started making body formulas because people couldn't relate to what is a flower essence, like why should I take this invisible thing like 3 drops, you know? So I started making massage oils, facial sprays, and then I moved to this mountain climate, and suddenly in the last year I'm making face care and hair care because of my own needs. And I don't even have a background in this, but I've always been a consumer of natural products, so it's just been an innate following. And I have it in some shops, and everyone who's bought the things have wanted more. They're like, I don't want to live without this product ever, you know? So I'm making personal care for women in their private parts. Sacred Creamer is a new personal lubricant, you know? So I also put flower essences in there too that help heal different things, you know, trauma, worthiness, increased passion, you know, different things. And not to get totally caught up on the flower stuff, but just to share like what you just shared with your experience, you know, I'm patient. I'm not out for like getting as many flowers as I can because I have enough, and they all have like their certain job they do, but it's just about paying attention. And so in my garden, suddenly the primrose started blossoming, and I've never seen one before until here. They only blossom at night. At dusk, the flowers open up. And so I listened. It was a new moon in Cancer. And so that's like, I'm a Venus in Cancer. So it's very like Venusian. And I always feel very in my Venus when I get to play with the flowers. And so I made the essence and I started taking it, and then I looked it up because there's a lot of information on the internet. I mean, you're going to have your own experience, but it's also fun to see what other people have said, what the flower does. And basically, I feel like it's a really powerful flower for our time. Number one, the primrose oil is very effective for women during PMS. Like people swear by that they just take primrose oil capsules when their cycle is coming on, and it diminishes their PMS and they're not having to take ibuprofen. So, you know, that's an example like, wow, that's really supportive for women. But the energy signature of it is really about the trauma that we had in the womb and our mother, and, you know, whatever stress she was going through, and however our first year or two was. So it's about being able to have the ability to make bonds and relationships. And, you know, I was a very solitary only child and had a lot of early cycles of loss and change and losing my mother for a period of time. And so this was so apropos for me. And so when I started taking it, I had like boom reactions, you know, agitation. I got into conflict with my mom and like just all these things. But then I like came out and I stood up for myself and I just said what I needed. I'm like, I don't appreciate being talked to this way. You know, I'm in my 50s now, you know, and finally I said the thing. Wow. But I said it kindly and said it with resolution. And so anyway, my point is, I have been putting the primrose in everything because I feel like, you know, especially after this pandemic and all of the social distancing, I think we're all like a little bit like, we want to be in our cocoon, we want to connect, but part of us is also afraid again to connect. Like we've probably all transformed a lot in the last 2 years. So I feel like that's a flower for our time right now to get into more healthy connections and also like honor our own heart to be like, where have I been playing it safe because I'm just so used to being neglected, or I'm so used to being abandoned, or I'm so used to feeling rejected. How about I take this step closer to become a participant? You know, like I told my mom, hey, this is what I needed. It would have been nice if you just actually showed curiosity instead of just saying something that sounded like a judgment. Like what makes me feel loved is going, how are you? And not assuming how I am.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm just using that as an example, right? So anyway, and I had just measured results from that flower, and it's just water and a vibration. And that just shows you how powerful we are as vibrational beings, you know?
Yeah. And just a little bit of support can go such a long way, right? I think so much. So this brings me on to like what made me want to create this series was this desire to, I guess, show up for myself in more of an unmasked kind of way. And like when I say the word mask, I'm kind of thinking now that mask is just a fear we wear, and it's all in different flavors and colors and in different outfits, right? And yeah, for me, I was playing it like small and not really doing anything. I mean, all my trauma and limiting beliefs were running my whole life, basically. And so with a bit of support I had some support from a coach, but also like my flowers and things like that. I just started tuning in, like, what do I want to do? Even if it doesn't make any sense. And this idea was I want to connect with people, women specifically, and just show up with no specific agenda, but just show up and see where it goes. And when I put the call out, like I had so many people interested that kind of interpreted my call out in their own way. But what I found is I've met all these interesting women, and we're on similar journeys, and we're all healers and coaches and people that kind of want to help and people that have helped themselves. So like for you, what drew you to the project?
Well, for one, because that is the nature of my work, and everything I am super interested in is what's under the surface. Like it's just is my curious nature. And I also think in my design is I have my job is to ask questions, and I always have another question. There's always going to be another question. So it's like I'm just a digger, and I just go through life often where I just feel like people don't want to go deep, you know, and that's why my work is so easy for me. If someone books a session with me, I'm like, I already know that they're going to change because all I have to do is ask them the questions, and they're going to find the gold, and they're going to unmask the negative spooky emotions that they hadn't realized they've been holding. So it's just something I'm really curious about, because and you know, the contrast is I love revealing things, and I'm also super private. I'm very I think I've had a very secretive life. Like from an early age, I had kind of a double life because of the nature of my family and things that they were into, of just like, oh, you know, let's not show the world that they're real partiers, you know, like I'm really normal. Or having to act normally, like having to get the cues of what you think is morally correct and what's not. And, you know, it took me decades later to find out that all the people are the same, you know, like, but I thought that the world's upholding a certain kind of moral compass that no one's actually practicing, you know? And so I definitely, like, the Unmasked, even, like, I created a flower essence 4 years ago, a rose face soap called Unmasked, because I just wanted the flowers to be like, oh, let's just wash off this thing from the day. Let's reveal our true self. So that was like, everything's about intention, you know? And so that's why your podcast caught my eye. And I like to talk about the real stuff that people try to avoid, you know, like,
Yeah.
well, how do you really feel about this, you know?
Yeah.
And when I was thinking about, well, you know, what's so, you know, I definitely thought about, well, there's definitely things I wouldn't share, or, you know, like, why do people want to share like some of their maybe disabilities or fixations, or like some things I just think are private, like the world doesn't need to know, but if it makes them feel like, oh, I just expose or unmask this thing, now it doesn't carry this weight of the secret anymore. There's no more taboo about it then. So
Yeah.
each of our release is going to be unique to us, of like just how much weight we've given that story as being bad or evil, or if people knew this about me, you know, they might not approve, because then it brings people closer, you know.
Yeah.
And then I thought about, you know, one thing that I've never really shared with anyone, and that I'm like, well, this isn't, oh, I'm really good. Am I really going to share this? But, you know, as an example, I'll share like two different things. So here I go. You know, we all have different addictions or OCDs, or, you know, people have some crazy OCDs. I think it's kind of, you know, a normal thing that people do have. And since I was young, I had an allergy to cats, and I would wake up with really crusty eyes.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't like go to school in the morning. I would get really close to the mirror and keep finding more sleep. And I just like, I was so ashamed of it. So it was my own thing. It wasn't something I ever talked about. I was always looking. And then it became an obsession my whole life, even though I didn't have sleep in my eyes anymore, of like pulling my hair. I think it's called trichotillomania. Like it's a dysfunction. But I have heard since then, you know, that it's also hereditary. And I've sat in a circle, and it can come out as different things. Like I've sat in a circle with my mom, my grandmother, and I, and, you know, I was like, I don't know what my grandma was like picking her head. My mom was picking the skin on her nails, and I was doing my thing in the moment. Right now, I don't even know what that was, but I looked around and we were all doing it. It's like this nervous compulsion. And it's interesting that we could have such a judgment about something that's actually hereditary, you know? And that's interesting. So I had, a moment a few years ago where I completely lost my mind when a certain event happened, and I didn't know how to proceed. I just felt so shocked and shell shocked. All I could do was like go to my eyes and eyebrows and get really close to be in that safe escapist world that I've been doing since I was in 3rd grade. That's when I started. And I literally took off half my eyebrows. You know, removed half my eyebrows, because it was the only way that I could get a relief, or like get out of, you know, I guess people do cutting. Maybe it's something, you know, maybe had that been known in my time, I would have been a cutter. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and people who've done that have shared that publicly. So I guess it's, you know, a different vein of that, but I was so ashamed of that I have to like paint on my eyebrows for years and have the secret, you know, but it's actually a condition, you know, people have it, you can work with it. But then I'm like, you know, now I said the thing that I didn't think I would ever say, but maybe it will help someone else, you know, to share this secret thing, because it's like, it's so much shame because it's like, it's in your face, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm lucky that I do still have eyelashes. You know, some people do have like chunks missing.
Yeah.
And anyway, so that's one thing that I would think is shameful and that I would never, ever, ever share as like a personal thing.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that is of just like my own personal devotion to prayer and spirit. Like it's something that I don't, at least I don't think I share it as much as it is a reality in my life, you know? Like I go to all these sacred places, not because I'm trying too hard, but because I happen to be there, you know? And somehow I get to be there at the perfect time in these really like natural churches to me, or temples, and then have beautiful ingredients and offerings and make prayers I didn't even know could be made for the world or for the earth and for waters. And I always get brought to springs and make prayers there on, you know, life has reflected back to me that I'm a water protector, I'm a water shaman. um I and but I would never say that, you know, I would never really speak about it. But I think it's good for us all to be more aware that there are things possible in other dimensions that we actually can connect to the unseen world and actually practice and actually find measured results, you know? Like I find the most incredible things in nature all the time. And my rule is I'm only allowed to pick it up if it's right where I was going to step. So all the feathers I find are right where my foot was going to step. And somehow I've been walking the same path since November, where I'm living right now on Mount Shasta. And not until this last month have I found 5 eagle feathers. And last week I found 2 that were the biggest ones within 5 minutes of each other, you know? And so, you know, they're so personal, because it's like, this is my love letter. This is my love letter exchange with Gaia or with nature, you know, but it's not something I would report about, or like, it's very precious and secret, you know?
What do you do with the feathers?
I actually save them and collect them. I hold them together in vases, like different vases, and I've got such a huge collection right now. They're like, all the vases are lined up, filled with all different types of feathers.
See, I personally think that's so beautiful. Like, what I'm feeling at the minute in the world is so many people have this kind of almost like a craving or a yearning to connect with something else. Like in my personal journey, there's a feeling in my heart like that wants to expand, and like nature, and the fact that we're all so like different, we're so special, we have like, we're all so ordinary, but there's something about us, like there's a magic to each and every one of us, and we each have our thing, right? And so that's yours, and I feel that people hearing that, I don't know, I feel like it's going to help them to connect more with their own like magic essence, or what things about them are unique, what are they drawn to, because we've all got like not a superpower, but like what I see in the coaching world a lot, especially like with people that are in like the spiritual and healing kind of niches and stuff, is that each coach is different, and they're all working some kind of magic, and it's amazing. Like the ones that have really kind of gotten into themselves and are just showing up unmasked and just delivering their witchiness, or whatever they like to call it, and I'm just like, oh my god, wow. And no two are the same, and like I love that, and I feel like I'm sort of finding my power. And as I sort of journey through, what I can feel is that something feels like it's being asked of me, like in order to get to my next level, I'm being asked to do something, take care of myself more. And so I'm kind of always up against my inner barriers, I guess. Like there's no going back. So it's kind of like you stay where you are for a while, or you kind of have to take the initiation and do the next thing. And so I'm being called to sound healing at the minute. I'm really interested in that. And I've had like a couple of sessions. And then, yeah, my diet, I mean, my relationship with food has been a bit kind of dodgy over the years, and it's still something that I really need to work on without rushing or pushing myself. But the way I feel in my body, I feel like I'm being asked to like really tune in and give my body more of what it needs. Like I'm still working on that, but like I don't know how I got there from what you said, but yeah, just you sharing that little beautiful thing about the feathers and things, I don't know, it's magical in my opinion. I like it. And obviously for you, there's some significance in it, right? What do you feel like you kind of get from it? You called it a love letter, is that right?
Yeah, that's what just came out. I mean, I refer to it as the call and response of the universe, that if we do have a prayer in our heart or a wish in our heart, that the universe can't help but respond, and I learned a lot in Hawaii from the land. It's an you're getting to be a guest on this wild island where new earth is being born, the lava. It blows your mind to see new earth being born, because we can't really fathom it. We can't really fathom this is like, oh, this island that actually keeps growing. But it really woke me up to the power of the goddess, of like the innate power of Mother Earth, which is also kind of a reflection, And so if we realize that she's the host and we're just the visitors, or getting to be, call this our home, we better pay our respects and become guardians of that. And so it kind of becomes the macro micro world, It blows my mind that I see trash everywhere I go. I'm like, how is it that we've gotten this far and people still litter? Like people still think it's okay to just leave everything everywhere. And like, I don't know, like, how did they grow up in a different world than I did? Because this is kind of normal. We've had trash cans everywhere and no littering signs since I was born. But, but as an example, right? It's just like the little details that every intention you have does matter and does have an impact. And not that then it's our responsibility to be like the trash cleaner upper, because then we're only going to be in complaint and judgment and like, can't believe in it, and then we're going to be like the gremlin ourselves. But I have a deal where I'm like, I'll pick up the trash if it's right where I'm going to step, and my bag could handle that, empty water bottle or whatever. Like there's an exchange, but so that I'm not in just the negativity, but that I'm more leaning into the beauty. And that's where I feel like that is the act of being a participant of creating, anchoring heaven on earth, like heaven isn't out there in the future. Like we're having this is like not a mind thing, but we have to grok that heaven is right here, and that it's our responsibility to practice heaven on earth. So what is that? Well, for me, it's like just getting this joy of being surprised, like witnessing a miracle. Not that I'm going to make the miracle, but I'm open to it. I'm open to seeing the rainbow. And that's why I bring up Hawaii, because there it's easier to recognize, to be like, oh my God, there's dolphins and whales. And oh my God, I get to just go in the water and the dolphins are going to come to me. And like, I'm not even paying for this. Or you get somewhere late when you try to get there on time and you're like, oh, I can't believe I'm so late. But then you get there and suddenly you have a double rainbow and you meet these amazing people and this awesome food gets offered to you, when had you been there on time, that would never have happened, just to recognize that we're always on time, that the time is just a belief. But if we really surrender to this flow and know, And I think that's really our job as females. Like you're saying, this body care and body nurturing, like the more you do put yourself first, which is like unraveling the wheel, then going with the push, push, push.
Yes.
Then you're going to reap the benefits, you know, like that working harder isn't going to produce more, but actually surrendering
Yes.
harder or softer
Yeah.
is, and being more receptive, you're going to be in a state of reception. And when you're in that, then I'm like walking, feeling like it's Christmas all the time, because I'm like, wow, oh my gosh, I can't believe that eagle just flew over me right after I found the feather. What? It's like, because my mind needed proof, and then the universe like, let's tell her it's an eagle feather, you know, keep the eagle, you know, like it's like delighted like that when we respond with delight.
Yeah.
And not with like a jadedness, you know. And I think, you know, I'm a triple Leo, so I get to be in the magical child, and I'm glad to nurture it, because then I also reap the rewards of it then, you know. And I feel silly, like, oh, well, I found, you know, 2 perfect heart rocks today again. Like, they don't just exist in Hawaii, they're actually everywhere I go, even if it's like a pavement and the asphalt like gives me perfect heart-shaped rocks, you know, like the universe communicates with us in our symbols and our symbolism. And, you know, I guess that's one of my masks, is this, I don't share the extent of synchronicities that I actually experience and live and witness, you know. That's just kind of like, you know, my Merlin self.
Amazing. My little boy finds, he can see hearts everywhere. You'll find
I could see you were like, where's one?
there was a rock that he gave me, but I've moved it. But it was like this rock, and it's like a big heart like that. Or he'll pick a leaf and it's always a heart, or there's a puddle or a cloud, and he's just got an eye full of hearts. And he's so adorable. He's like always picking me flowers and pointing out love hearts to me everywhere. So like, it just reminded me of that. But I don't know what I've done with that.
But your little channel and messenger to prove that to you. And you know, it is that innocence, that glee, like every time we appreciate it, the universe is going to give us more. And that's why I'm always like, I live to have my mind blown, because I always think like, okay, well, what are the odds for this situation? Like, well, it's either going to be like this or like this. But then it's like, this like number 26 minus 53 plus arraignment, like it's just something I could never have come up with. And then I'm always like, I call it hashtag holy smirk, like like I get it, like this is so beyond anything I can think of, and thank you, please.
Yes, yeah, this is so like reminding me of like this. I feel like I'm just coming into this because I'm learning and have learned to some degree to kind of let go and let God, as they say. But even the timing, like doing things slower. My coach is very she doesn't rush anything, but she'll take a few days to get back to me about something. And at first I was thinking, I need an answer and I need it now. But you know, in that time that it takes, obviously I've learned to just, she'll get to me when she's ready. But I always learn something something occurs to me in that space that she leaves, right? And so there's just this invitation to, like, trauma does kind of put you out of body and it makes you feel like you have to hurry up. There's always this fear that's kind of rushing you. But when you learn to sit inside your body and kind of be a space for all the shit that's flying through, there's more of an ability to slow down and let life happen. Let people be themselves. Let things just happen the way they're happening, right? Without trying to interfere and cajole and force and push. And it's like life's happening. We're not in control anyway. It's an idea. So when you kind of can sit in that place of, actually, I'm not in control, and let things, so if we're running late, why don't we just see it as not being late? There's no point in rushing. We'll get there when we get there, right? The world doesn't fall apart. And some good things, like you said a minute ago, some interesting things can happen just the way they're going to happen, right? And we don't really need to try. We just need to allow ourselves and the world to be as it is. Just deal with what shows up, right?
Yeah. And it's like the deconditioning actually is the stopping. you know, there's like some Alanis Morissette quote about like, you know, stopping doesn't mean dying. You know, and I'm like, she said that so well, because to our minds, it's like, oh my God, if I don't do something, I'm not going to survive, you know, like that push and the pressure. And I feel like at the end of the day, that's something I'm consistently trying to whittle down, is the pressure to like, where is this pressure coming from? Who is this pressure? And the allowing of like the resting and being passive is what I call buffering. Like we are learning or rocking things and being downloaded so much right now at such a high rate and speed, is that when we're tired, instead of like judging ourselves or why can't I do this, or I can't believe I'm tired, and the mind just wants to judge and think it's not going to survive, like how am I going to get all this done? But if we just stop the judgment and go like, yeah, it's time for Netflix and chill. Guess what? That's right now, that's what the body is demanding. And what would happen if I listen? And then I just call that buffering. Like we're not going to, also people have migraines. I feel like when migraines take people out, it's because they would not have taken a day off for themselves, you know, where you literally can't watch a movie or be on your phone with a migraine because it's so all consuming. But I feel like there's some the body has its own wisdom of like, we need to get that person on their back doing nothing. Like, and this what's going to take. Yeah. And that's why I call the tapping I do changing your mind and your body, because we're incorporating, you know, tapping on our nervous system. And while we're tracking like, oh, that thing happened. Oh, I love and accept myself even with that trauma. It's suddenly the body's like, oh, it's safe to move this thing along now because it's just been spoken to or acknowledged or something. But, you know, that just ties into the miracle of the body informing us all the time.
All the time. The body knows. Yeah. The body is like, it's the physical connection between the non-physical and us, right? It contains 24/7 information, and it's almost like a pathway for you to listen to it. If it wants to rest.
I'm so glad people are waking up to this and allowing that, because if women are going to be doing this all over the world, just think how much more resourceful we can be, how much more powerful we can be, that when we do have the energy, because we are such powerful creatrixes, you know. And like if we give ourselves the nurturing and the downtime, and like, you know, if I can add one inspiration here today, I always like to say Friday is Freya's day. That's goddess day. And like if you know, like, okay, it's Friday, how can I be in my Venusian self? Even if you're working, even if you have a full schedule, like make the time to do something you love that day, wear something beautiful, eat the thing you want, be sensuous, go and dance alone or whatever. But for me, it's always making art and getting in water or something. So it's like when we nurture and actually cut out a time to dedicate to that Venusian self, like it will change your life. It will create, like, it'll make you even more powerful in the things that you have to do on the regular anyway, but also contribute to increasing whatever art form you're practicing or learning, you know, and trying new things. That's what I always encourage people, like try new things, because we need to be in the beginner mind with things. And if, you know, because for me, it was painting. I'd never painted. And now I paint rocks. I feel so silly still, like, how have you not learned even how to mix colors yet? But when I paint the rocks, I feel so relaxed. It gets me out of my mind. And then it increases my photography. Like suddenly I'll just like have new insights, and it just takes where I do have some gifts into a whole other level. And so I really highly recommend, like, just play and be childlike curious, you know? Just be curious
yourself, isn't it? Immerse yourself in yourself.
Yeah. And don't be shy. Like I take my grandfather's harmonica that I inherited from his bedside night table in the 90s, and I take it on every hike with me. I don't know how to play it, but I'll bring it out and I'll be like, play something to see what's going to come out, but I like to not know. And then I feel like the nature appreciates that I'm giving this innocence, this act of innocence, than a performance. And whoever I'm with is always like, oh my God, I loved when you played that. And I'm like, I felt so stupid while I was doing it, but just feeling the fear and doing it anyway, because it's the courage, I think what you're speaking to earlier, like how we're going to transform is to lean into this courage, the courage to unmask, the courage to be ourselves. And, like I just started my podcast officially, and, you have to choose, am I going to position it so that I'm going to get what's the most searchable, or am I going to keep it clean so that I can attract a wider audience? And I'm like, you know what? If I'm going into this, I have to be as true to who I am right now as possible. So I'm hitting explicit, because I want people to, say the shit they want to say and be real, because it's about the unmasking and not like people pleasing or doing something to gain, or like I want to be able to drop F-bombs. And so I'm like, no, I'm a pretty modest person, but I do appreciate sensuality and suggestibility. And I want to show erotic photographs of people that I photograph, even though that's not the goal. But it's like, we need more stepping out of sharing and showing pleasure and saying the gritty stuff. And sometimes, Tony Robbins is all about, we have to say the F word because it kind of dislodges people's safety. They're like, it kind of throws a wrench in it. So you have to say it. And I'm not saying it now because I'm not sure if I can. But
you can say what the F you like.
Okay. But you know what I mean? I feel like we're really stepping into a time to really stand for what you stand for, than trying to fit into others so that you might have a
fuck
broader
trying to fit. Fuck trying to fit. That's the
fuck that. Fuck that shit. So my new hashtag is all about fuck yeah life. Like, well, what am I going to do this or this? I'm like, well, what would be your fuck yeah life? And I'm like, well, that fuck yeah, that, like, it has to be a hard yes. So yeah.
Oh, amazing.
So it's about, like, my business is called Rose Yoga, and that's all the intention is about heart courage, and then I'm a Leo, but I have felt like a coward my whole life. And maybe I'm not hiding, but I feel like I'm hiding all the time. And that's why this speaks to me too, of like, it does take the courage to share the thing that I might feel is really private or secret, And I survived sharing those things I just shared with you.
I know, and someone's going to hear that, and it's possibly going to touch them or help them. Right, listen, I'm going to cut. We're at time. What a beautiful conversation. Tell the people watching that might be interested in your work and what you do, where they can find you.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll just say to go to on the podcast, I think it's on Anchor. It's Rose Yoga Tapping into Heart Courage. And then you can find me through the website from there, and Miracle _Inc. on Instagram. But I'm pretty readily findable, and there's some tapping videos on YouTube. But yeah, thank you so much. I'm really behind your mission here.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing so courageously and inspiring. I've loved it. It's been really inspiring for me as well. So thank you.
Yeah, well, big aloha, and spread the aloha in England.